Hello everyone, this is Evan here from the Trade Risk on Wednesday, August 24th with a midweek market recap video. We are first going to analyze the current market environment. We're going to look at some other markets, sector analysis, and then finish off looking at just a few individual names. Now today we finally saw some excitement in the markets. S&P 500 does represent a bit of that, falling down 0.5% on the day, but really there were some key sectors that really felt the pressure today. We'll get into those in just a little bit later in the video. We'll start though with the S&P 500. You can see we did suffer a little bit of damage today. We fell down 0.5%. Let's look at where we started the week. We came in right here on this candle. This was basically dead in the center of this 10-day range. Nothing too exciting. Yesterday on Tuesday, we got a bit of a pop here, right? We resolved the range to the upside. We made new all-time highs, but we closed poorly. We closed on the lows of the day, and yesterday was a little bit, was a day for both kind of camps. If you were bullish, you at least saw a resolve to the upside starting the week off higher. That was constructive, but the bears can hang their hat on sellers being more aggressive at all-time highs and wanting to sell all-time highs, closing us on the lows and demonstrating that there was some kind of pent-up interested sell pressure there. So there was a little bit for both. Coming into today, we wanted to really see how we would follow up this kind of candle, and we certainly saw how it was follow through to the downside back into this range. So firmly kind of saying that this was a failed breakout. I know some people might say you need to take down support for you to really confirm a failed breakout. I don't want to get into the definition, but the way I look at this is we failed to break out, and we're back into this now 13-day range, and we tested kind of this flattening 20-period EMA and some very significant support at 217. So sellers have a little bit of an edge here as they're on the run, as they kind of put pressure on us, and it's really interesting. It will be interesting to see tomorrow. Do we actually get follow through from today's session? Getting follow through on the downside has not been an easy task. It hasn't really happened at all since this rally really began here in July, early July. We haven't really been able to put more than 2 days of selling on the board. So that's going to be interesting to see tomorrow. Can we actually get follow through lower? If we start to break 217, that's certainly going to shake the pot, as now we're breaking a much more significant kind of level of what was resistance. Now it's been holding as support, and if we fall back into here, it's just going to open up the gates to a potentially larger pullback. So the way we're playing it, right, the way I look at this, we failed to break out here. That's a sign for us to reduce exposure. That's what we did throughout today. I can't really get net short on this market just now, just given the sort of bullish longer-term context and the fact that we are at support right now. It's just tough to short into this in this type of environment. So for me, it's all about reducing exposure, still long, but much less, and just kind of waiting to see how this all shakes out. Friday we have Janet Yellen speaking, I believe in Jackson Hole. Market could be on hold for that. It's just generally still though slow kind of summertime trading. Once Labor Day hits, which is a little over a week away, then we could probably expect some of this volume and excitement to pick back up. I actually didn't check on the volume levels today, but we could do that right now if that wants to load for us. Just to make a quick observation, yeah, so volume today was, slight uptick, but really still below, the 50 moving average of volume, and still just average on par with the recent sessions that we had. So that's sort of the way we're looking here at the S&P 500. Going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow. If we go to the IWM, we can see basically, reversing yesterday's kind of nice pop higher. Remember yesterday, this actually did close strongly, closed up almost 1% on the day, and it gave all that back today, but still notice the strength here. It's still above a rising 8-period EMA, or closing right at it. So there's still a tremendous amount of strength here in the small caps. No technical damage done whatsoever, just standard kind of grinding higher price action. The Qs suffered a little bit more of sort of a technical some fault here just as it comes back down to support. It's just more clearly range bound here. going sideways, flattening 20 period and below now the 8 period. So it'll be interesting to see, just like the S&P 500, if we get follow through here to the downside on the Qs. Now, we haven't talked about the specific sectors that really got beat up today, so let's start to move through some of those. We'll start from the top though. TLT, this isn't one, but TLT continues to sort of consolidate here. You can see it's finding, some hesitation at this downtrend line at this price of 140. Going to have to see how that reacts in the coming days. Still at an interesting kind of inflection area, so keep that on close watch. Gold is one that got really hit today, and really the gold miners, right? And we're going to look at that. Minus 1.1% here in gold. Got a gap down and just basically a trend lower throughout the day below this support now, which was holding for a couple of weeks. So we're now back heading down to this trend line here. This is going to be interesting to see if this gets follow through lower. If we go to GDX now, this really got crushed. These are the gold miners down 7%. And look at this candle here, right? This isn't just a calm retracement back into support. This is a slam down, get me out of this market kind of 7% waterfall lower into this prior, what was resistance back here in 2013-14, and a level that we punched through earlier this month, or at least last month. This is going to be an interesting area, this $27. Do we see more follow through lower? Is this overblown? Do we get a pop higher? It's really tough for me. You really just have to let these things settle. Wouldn't want to be a hero trying to buy it. And again, shorting after 7%. I like momentum, but that's a little too extreme. So we're going to have to just really see how that goes. But certainly these material names and these miners names got crushed today, and partly gold getting a little bit of a move lower. Silver particularly too starting to unwind a little bit faster, down 1.7%. We talked about this 1840 being important. We lost it, and we're heading lower. There's a bunch of gaps back here from earlier this year that perhaps silver wants to retrace. If you go to the weekly chart, you can see still above the 20 period EMA on the weekly chart, but clearly some wind coming out of the sails here on the daily chart. If we go to USO, also getting hit today, down 2.5%. This one's been volatile after putting in a top here to start the week with this gap lower. We have clear reference points kind of down here from this swing to this swing. We're still above a rising 8 and 20, or basically we're closed under the 8, but still above a 20. So we're gonna have to see if buyers can kind of step in here and start to stabilize USO for maybe some type of base before maybe a new leg higher. We'll have to see. That's not a prediction, just waiting to see what happens there. Natural gas had a nice session today, up 1.34%. This was a trade that we were in coming into today. We actually got involved in it back here on Monday to start the week. This is one we've been talking about on the blog and on the streams for at least the past week or so, talking about the importance of this $8 level and kind of getting back above this support. Really what got us interested was this island reversal that got set up here on Friday's session with Monday's gap higher. That was our entry price. We sold some today at 835. We're still holding a piece of this position, about half of this position. So nice trade for us, nice 2-day winner in natural gas. I'm interested to see how this responds heading into tomorrow. And finally, US dollar, we'll look at that real quick. You can see a bit of a gap up, not too interesting, kind of still below this trend line here as far as that goes. Now, let's look at some of these other sectors that really got hit today. IBB was one of them, or XLV healthcare, with a specific on the IBB. Look at this candle that got printed here. Very wide range, right? This is the largest range we've seen in the IBB in going back a few months now, from all the way testing to almost a potential breakout this morning to all of a sudden breaking 20-day lows and below the 20 period EMA. So going to be interesting to see if there's any follow through here or if this was overblown. Selling pressure certainly started to accelerate around lunchtime or after lunch, the second half of the session. I believe there were probably comments made here. I'm not very up to date with the news on this, but this is certainly going to be interesting to see if there's some follow through here. They were shaping up after breaking out in July in this kind of upper level base above resistance. We'll have to see if that trend change is amongst us now. I'm not too sure yet. We'll have to see. As far as GDX, we already covered that. Another sector that got crushed today. XLB also one. And we identified this kind of breakout here yesterday in our live stream session, and that breakout turned to be just a big kind of bull trap there as today we're back below this resistance level of $49. So we're gonna have to see if we get follow through, still in this range, but clearly this upper level momentum that might have been the new normal here after yesterday's session is no longer there. So have to keep that on watch into tomorrow. XLE also under a little bit of pressure today, just with the pullback in USO, still above this breakout area more or less. So you're gonna have to see if that can stabilize and find some support there. And IYR also continues to be the weakest. So there's definitely some, with today's actions, some kind of false breakouts and some movement to be aware of, and giving a little more sort of significance to the seller, to the bear case now at this point. On the upside, semis are still strong, right? Look at this. We pulled back today, yes, but still above an 8-period EMA. Still very strong there. XLY still strong, all things considered. It's consolidating pretty firm up here. So we'll have to see how that ends up. XLF also very tight and just going sideways here, not being phased by much one way or the other. Also could go either way. So just something to keep on watch as far as some sectors that are still kind of consolidating and not doing a whole lot wrong. If we go into some of these individual names, we'll look at just a couple here. Amazon pulling back today, now convincingly closing below the 20-period EMA. It's been struggling a bit. Maybe is this some type of head and shoulders that's kind of developing here as some type of short-term top. We'll have to see if we get follow through lower in Amazon. Next, if we look at Google, we are now back to this significant sort of breakout area where we launched above off of earnings. You can see on the weekly chart, the 788, 790 area is where price is coming back into. So we're going to have to see how this responds here. It's right at the 20 period as well. Twitter continues to stay weak here. Remember, we wanted to see this hold above $19 to remain as optimistic and constructive on the bull case in Twitter. And it's back below it now, and it's spending time below it, making new kind of weekly lows here. So we're gonna have to see how that shakes up into the end of the week. Can we start to get some type of bounce here and get back closer to 19, or do we just end the week kind of back in this messy range? Not ideal if you're a bull, but could still show some promise to the end of the week. Tesla, we'll just end here. Still pretty tight, all things considered. It's been volatile. I know there was an announcement yesterday, but it did kind of get a little bit of an acceleration in its range over the past 2 days, but still more or less in this kind of coiling pattern, and we're going to need to see which way this wants to break. Should set up a pretty interesting trade here, either on the short side or long side. Could go either way, and we'll have to keep an eye on that heading into next week. So that's the video for today. Hope everybody had a great day trading. Good luck out there, and I will talk to you soon.